Good morning, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Amr. Thank you, John. And thank you, Satira, for having me as part of the inaugural presentation of this, hopefully, series. Uh, Let me just share my presentation. If you don't mind, please let me know when you see it. Yep. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah, that's good.
Excellent. Thank you very much again. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for everyone attending. This presentation, I'll try to run through as fast as possible and as comprehensive as possible on a topic that is in our part of the world. We call it emerging. It's growing. It's taking shape. It's starting to take a main stage, and that is renewable energy. I'm not an engineer, so I'm not going to talk about the engineering sides of renewable energy, but mainly about the potential impacts and how to mitigate them and avoid them. And just to give a background about this story that has been going on in the world for quite some time, but in our part of the world, it's becoming more and more larger and more persistent and more important to follow up and look at and try to find solutions for. So just to give you an idea about what we are going to talk about, just to give you a brief background about bird migration. And I think similar to any topic in the world, if you want to talk about it in 5 minutes, it will be much harder than if you're given 1 hour to talk about it. But bird migration is a global phenomenon that I'll try to cover in probably 2 minutes. It's something that happens all the time, at least twice a year, including almost all the species in the world that are moving around the globe. It's a non-stopping activity. Most of the people hear about large-sized birds migrating long journeys, but in general, and very generally speaking, most of the species, if not all, migrate in one way or another. The ones that the famous ones or the celebrities, let's say, are the eagles and the storks that pass through from Europe and to Africa and in autumn, and then they fly back in spring to breed again in Europe and in the northern hemisphere. Other birds migrate geographically or they change. They go from lower altitudes to higher altitudes and vice versa. So it's not only it's about movement, and everybody's doing it. This is the main idea. The other main idea, which then comes in direct, I would say, collision with wind energy, metaphorically, but again physically, which we will talk about later, is that different species follow different migration techniques and strategies. Some birds, and I'm sorry, I'm going to be doing a lot of metaphors, but it's just to to bring the idea closer to the audience. So some species can go on long journeys, non-stop, I would say marathons. We're crossing not just, I don't know, the marathon is about 32, I think, kilometers, but even hundreds of kilometers in one go. Others can depend on wind to carry them. And we will come to that later on with the soaring birds, the large-sized birds that depend on thermals, which are air that is heating up from the surface of the earth, and then they are carried around without even flapping a wing, and they can cover 300 or 500 kilometers per day, and then they would stop and then continue the next day, and so on and so forth. And there are some others that follow sort of a hopping technique or a strategy where they move from one place to another, land there, feed, and then continue. Some migrate during the day, some migrate during the night. It's just an ongoing show that is happening behind the scenes. We don't see it in all the time clearly, but it is happening all the time in the world. This is a map that is showing very generally again and very roughly the main migration flyways. And if you can see our part of the world, I hope you can see my mouse, my pointer. Here you can see that it is overlapping with different huge flyways. And the point from behind presenting this specific slide is to talk about that these are flyways and not highways. They're not roads. They're not routes or tracks. These are flyways. So the same individual the same bird individual that flies and follows this track one day, he might use another, but it will be inside the general flyway. So normally when we work, especially with engineers, they always want to have like clear-cut answers about issues. And generally in ecology, with all the factors that are coming in, which we will talk about later, like climate change and everything, there are no clear answers that, okay, on the 15th of August, we're going to have this species passing through. It's not a flight. It's something that has so many factors playing in. And that's why flyways are huge geographical areas. They cover huge land areas or parts of the world, and it's not easy to pinpoint and to identify the exact uh, uh, incidents or movements of the different species with regarding time and location. And as I said, everybody does it. The ones that are very famous for it are most probably as I said, maybe the large-sized birds like eagles and vultures and storks. As you can see, this griffin vulture on the top left, but everybody does it. Ducks fly and migrate. People who live in Europe notice that, of course, when they don't see the ducks as much as they do during spring and summer, and they don't see them in winter or in lower numbers. Large-sized birds migrate, but also small-sized birds. And the bird on the top right is called the lesser white-throat, which is the size of, just 12 centimeter, 15 centimeters in length, 7 grams in weight, and it migrates all the way from Europe to Africa and back every day, twice. So, and of course, you have the water birds, the owls, swallows, which I think, are very well known all over the world. And for people, especially in our part of the world, they are a sign of, for me at least, but they are known for being a sign of migration and movement and agility in flying through. And you can see them even in the most unexpected places in the world. They are to areas, and you would find swallows flying through, just migrating back home or migrating all the way to their wintering grounds. So as I said, everybody's doing it. All the different species do it, and they follow different techniques and strategies to make this journey through. And this takes us to the conflict. The conflict that we have is that movement of birds, which is happening all over the world all the time, now has a new, in our part of the world, it's new, but in the world as a whole, it's relatively new, a new challenge, and that is the construction of renewable energy. Renewable energy, as we all agree, we all know that it is a very positive move in the direction for adaptation and for climate change. It's a greener and cleaner source of energy. Nobody can deny that. However, there are also impacts or potential impacts for these projects in the world that needs to be looked at, studied, uh, mitigated, and hopefully avoided. The main issue is with the turbines themselves, but also with the infrastructure that is supporting those turbines. And for people who don't know or haven't seen a turbine, although I think in this time and age, everybody has seen one at least once. But to give you an idea, a turbine, is a huge construction. It's a huge body that can cover a large area uh, the latest turbines have reached the height of 200 meters and more, and even 300. The blade itself alone, one blade of the turbine can reach to from 35 to 70 meters and even longer. They spin at, which you can see them from a distance. I think that they are slow, but people who know physics, maybe I'm not the best to talk about that. They spin at a very high speed, and they can cause, as you can see in the picture to the left, major impacts on birds that pass through. So this is one way. It is the direct collision, if we can say, which might lead to fatalities, but also it's much more than just collisions. Large wind farms can cause displacement and disturbance to different species. So they are and what I mean by displacement is that those species or these birds are forced to move away because of the presence of the wind turbines and the infrastructure as a whole. So they are stopped or blocked from breeding where they used to breed in the past, and therefore they are moved to somewhere else. And larger wind farms or groups of wind farms, which can form sort of a barrier effect, so they can form sort of a wall, if we can say, in one way or another, that would stop birds from moving in one direction. Then it would force them to move somewhere else or change migration strategies or techniques or routes, and that of course would come with a physical, I would say, price on those birds, and of course on the effort that they do to follow their historical flyways. The other final impact also is habitat loss. So although the wind turbines in general have very, I would say, small impact, physical impact, because they're just huge high structures with relatively small pads where they're put on, but they also cause fragmentation. There are many tracks that lead between the wind turbines, for maintenance issues and for health and safety, of course. So they also have a clearer impact on habitats and its fragmentation. And now these issues are getting more attention than before. When wind farms were introduced, they were looked at as the solution for a lot of our problems. Then the issue with birds started to appear, and then bats came on stage because it was found that also bats can be impacted negatively in some locations and for some specific species. And the same now, habitats and fragmentation is becoming to take much more attention than it used to in the past. The good things we have, or that we can talk about, is that so far the science is there. We know a lot. Maybe we don't know enough. We'll never know enough, probably. I don't want to get too philosophical about it, but we know enough to keep us going, to find the answers. There are one of the major guidelines that have been developed a few decades ago has been followed or has been learned from, if I can say, over the past years, is the Scottish guidelines for wind energy, which has been, I would say, like a blueprint that everybody has followed and tried to learn from and develop national ones and regional ones that follow. There are several tools and publications that have been published from different stakeholders, and this is also very interesting. Like the Nature Scot is a governmental body. BirdLife, which is an international NGO, has developed a mapping tool to identify or red flag areas that are very highly sensitive for potential impact of birds from renewable energy. There are also funders and donors have their own also publications that would guide, and one of them, of course, is IFC, that would guide mitigation and management for wind energy and their impacts on birds. There are national ones. This one was produced, the avifaunal safeguards for Jordan, which was produced collaboratively between an NGO and the government, the Ministry of Environment. So there are many donors have collaborated together to produce another one. Funders have collaborated together to produce a very important publication. I don't want to get into the details of each one of those, but each one of those can have its own presentation, to be honest. And I'm sure you don't want to hear from me for 2 more hours about that. So we'll move as fast as we can. And as I said, we know a lot. Next month, actually, in less than 1 month, in September, there will be the conference on wind energy and wildlife impacts, which is going to take place in France from the 8th until the 12th of September 2025. And this is the 8th conference. So this topic has been on the global scene for quite some time. And I've been honored to be part of the member of the scientific advisory committee for this conference over the past 2 rounds, if I can say. And you can see that the topic is compiling a lot of knowledge. And for anyone who's interested or has the time to attend this conference, I would definitely encourage you to go and attend it. And you can even attend it online, because the amount of knowledge that is shared on these scenes, on these stages, is just huge, and is a place to learn about the topic that we are talking about right now. This is a screenshot from the mapping sensitivity tool that BirdLife has produced, and it is the very first step that should be done for any wind energy project that can that can potentially start, just to check what is happening. And as you can see, I don't want to get into too much details about the screenshot, but as you can see, this is a site, and it shows all those red lines that are passing through are birds that have been monitored by radar and GPS. So there is a lot of knowledge that we can learn from and look at. And this sensitivity tool sort of provides a model of the potential impact. It doesn't provide the final answer, but it gives a start for the science to look at. The science of operational monitoring and the implementation of operational monitoring for wind farms has been going on for years. Sometimes it's done through observer-led, so there are observers on site who can give orders for turbines to shut down. So, and the shutdown on demand, they call it SOD, has become a science of its own. It's a methodology that has been developing over the years, and now it has taken different, let's say, approaches depending on the circumstances. AI has pitched in, as it has in all parts of the world, and it has become, radars are included now in shutdown and demand, and even, as I said, AI. So there are now new programs that can identify the birds coming through, the size of them, and the potential direction that they're going to take, and which turbines should be shut down and at what speed, etc. And again, this can be talked about in much more details. Based on all that we have mentioned, the main takeaways that we can learn from is that wind energy, with all its positive sides, and I don't want to sound like someone who's against wind energy, not in any way. On the contrary, I'm one of the supporters for it if it's done in the right way, with the right approach and the right principles. But with all its positive sides, it can still have catastrophic impact on birds and biodiversity if not mitigated. And one of the main examples that has been that has triggered this work on wind energy and mitigations for birds was the Altamont Pass wind farms, which have caused huge fatalities in the past because the turbines were located in a place where it is sort of a bottleneck for birds to pass through. And it was a catastrophe, but it was a place to learn from and build on and mitigate the impacts of wind energy. And here we are now with all the knowledge that we have based on what happened in the past. As I said, the science and technology is available to provide solutions and sometimes provide quite very impressive solutions. There is one of those examples is in Portugal, where some of our colleagues have worked on producing a system of radar shutdown on demand that ensures zero fatality of soaring bird incidents in a specific wind farm. Of course, this didn't come by by chance. It came by continuous monitoring and the right modeling, and to reach to this level of zero fatality. And when we say zero fatality for soaring birds, of course, soaring birds are the large-sized birds that depend on wind. So we're not they didn't mitigate the whole fatality issue. I don't want this to be the highlight, but they have managed to remove the direct impact and the most negative impact on the highest priority species that were impacted by this wind farm, and they managed to do that, and they have reached to zero soaring bird fatality. And this is an amazing achievement that can encourage us to that it could be done if the right approaches and the right solutions are followed. And as I said, it's not only about the birds. Offshore wind farms are now out there. They might impact also marine mammals, seabirds flying over the sea, bats. A few years back, maybe 10 years back, bats were barely mentioned, and they were thought to be impacted, but not much. But now it was proven that they are also impacted, and there are specific mitigation measures for bats in specific. And as I said, habitats are also another side that also requires further look at, and and as I said, it's gaining more and more attention. Last but not least, there are what works in Scotland doesn't necessarily work in the Arabian Peninsula, and vice versa. There is no silver bullet or a magic solution for everything. On geography and topography context even, and this plays a major role in making the decisions and taking the right mitigation solutions, and maybe trying the mitigation solutions and then work on adaptive management to find the other solutions and better solutions and fine-tune the solutions. So and there are many examples about that, and I would give just one. And I don't know if some of you, or all of you, had the chance. There was a highlight, like a headline on the news a few years back. I think it was 2 or 3 years back, that black blades have, led to zero fatality in. Of course, the headline was, a big one in black font at the top, and you would read it and you'd say, okay, we found the magic solution for everything. Just paint one blade black and everything will be solved. And of course, this was in a very specific context in Norway, with this very specific bird, which was the white-tailed eagle, that has avoided the blades much more when one of them was painted black, because he could see the turbine when this was painted. Does this apply everywhere? The rapid, very fast answer is no. It was tried, it was experimented in other parts of the world where white-tailed eagle was not there, and other birds. The fatalities did not go down. So they tried it in the Netherlands, they tried it in Spain, and it's been having different results depending on the location. So again, it's not about we cannot come with one solution and apply it like one size fits all solution. This doesn't work, and we have to, for each wind farm that is developed, to try and make all the correct steps to reach to the right mitigation measures. Then comes climate change, and I don't want to talk about that much, but we all know that. As Amir said, people now know what climate change is impacting, and climate change is not only impacting us as humans. They're impacting everything. They're impacting even the natural cycles of the different species. The movement of migration has been changing. I'll give a very fast example. In one of our migration monitoring for one of the wind farms in our part of the world, some of the species that we were expecting to see in late May didn't show up. We knew, all the literature mentioned that this species comes in or peaks, or its migration peak is during after mid-May. Nothing showed up, and they only showed up 2 weeks later. Why? We tried to find solutions, and we tried to connect the dots, let's say, and it was found that it's most probably climate related for this specific year, because the year after they came back to their natural cycle. So it is affecting us, it is affecting the birds, and it is affecting how the whole system works. Finally, which I think I've been mentioning throughout, but mentioned it a couple of times, and that is adaptive management. And it goes back to the point that we don't have, the magic solution, and therefore adaptive management is key. Solutions have to be looked at, mitigation measures have to be continuously evaluated, monitoring programs can be fine-tuned and evolve as we move on. Wind farms last for 20 or 30 years, so it's not a short-term project, and therefore monitoring needs to continue, and mitigation measures implementation needs to continue. With all that we have said, of course, we know a lot, but still there is even a lot that we don't know. And this is, again, is a major takeaway message that I believe in, that different places, you need to learn more. Specific sites have their own specificities and specific circumstances, and then we need to find more and understand more. And as the situation is all the time, as humans, we still don't know much about what is going around us on this globe. We've been there for quite some time, but still there is a lot to learn from and understand, if I can say. And finally, yes, as I said, there are no one size fits all solutions, and hopefully in the future we can continue to understand how things work and bring more focus about this topic into our part of the world, into the Arabian Peninsula, into West Asia, more generally, because wind energy is coming there into the whole region. It's there already, but it's coming on this. Thank you very much, and back to you, John.
Thank you, Laith. That was a really informative presentation, and that, I think what you ended off with there is just so staggeringly clear that, I mean, the more you know, it shows how much you still don't know, and how much we still have to carry on our studies to get a really good benchmark or bench line for what the status quo is, and how we can go about coming up with mitigation measures to try to prevent some of these bird kills. Very quickly, I mean, 4 points struck me straight off the bat. The one takes me back to high school was the Arctic tern has the longest migration, I think, something like it's pole to pole, I think, if I'm not mistaken, something like 70,000 kilometers, just staggering for a bird that weighs like, I don't know, maybe 100 grams or something. That just ceases to amaze me. The blades as well you spoke of. I've had some experience dealing with offshore wind farms, and those blades are incredible. They each one weighs about 27 tons. It's the length of a football pitch. So you can imagine the damage. And then also in terms of recycling, most of them end up in landfill because they're polycarbonates. And you see the whole point. Green energies and renewable energy is wonderful, but you've got to balance the costs. Both on biodiversity and things like recycling, etc. And point number 3 was the relationship of benchmarkers and AI. I think it's really important that we have a better handle, and no matter how much research you do, you can always do more. And I think we have to have a really full understanding of the situation. So thank you very much. I really enjoyed that.